Miyamoto Musashi won 60 life-or-death duels beginning as a teenager and was never defeated. He was a kensei, a sword saint, an artist, and a philosopher who mastered the art of two-sword fighting. But 1 week before his death in 1645 in a cave known as Regando, he gave away all his possessions and wrote down a final stark testament for his favorite student. This wasn't a supplemental book on sword fighting strategy, it was 21 principles for living, a code he called the Dakodo, the way of walking alone. This document is the ultimate distillation of his entire philosophy. It moves beyond the complex tactics of his famous Book of Five Rings and drills down into the core of his mindset. These are not gentle suggestions for self-improvement. They are uncompromising rules for building mental toughness, achieving absolute self-reliance, and pursuing a life of focused purpose, stripped of all sentimental illusion. We have translated these 21 ancient principles into a modern operating system for mastery, beginning with the first act of transformation, shedding the unnecessary mental weight. The first step in clearing the path is to shed the emotional baggage that holds us back. The foundational rule demands that we accept everything just the way it is. This is often mistaken for passive resignation, but it is in fact the first move of any strategist. You cannot effectively change a situation if you refuse to accept its reality. Wishing reality were different is the most profound waste of energy. Instead, we must see the starting point with absolute objective clarity without emotional resistance so we can plan the next move effectively. Psychologically, this mirrors the modern therapeutic concept of radical acceptance, a practice proven to reduce suffering and increase proactive behavior by removing the emotional friction against reality. Following this, Musashi instructs us to be detached from desire your whole life long. This is a subtle but critical distinction. Desire for an outcome can motivate you to start the work, but attachment to that outcome will inevitably cloud your judgment, leading to fear of failure or overconfidence in success. Detachment allows you to pursue your goals with intense focus without being emotionally wrecked by inevitable setbacks or becoming addicted to the temporary high of success. Consider the Olympic archer. They desire to hit the target, but they cannot be attached to the shot they just released. They must immediately return their focus to the process of knocking the next arrow. Studies show that this detached focus improves performance dramatically because it eliminates the paralysis of overthinking and the distraction of ego. Next, we are told, do not regret what you've done. Regret is simply another form of wishing the past were different, which directly violates the principle of acceptance. It is rented, expensive space in your mind dedicated to a past you cannot change. The alternative to regret is not denial, but a brief post-action audit. When a mistake occurs, the only productive questions are, what did I learn? And how will this inform my future actions? Then, you must move forward. Every past action, especially the mistakes, has forged the capable person you are today. Dwelling on them only stops your forward momentum. The final element of stripping mental weight is the instruction to never let yourself be saddened by a separation. People, places, and phases of life are inherently impermanent. Musashi, observing the natural world, understood that attachment to what must inevitably change is the primary source of suffering. This principle builds emotional resilience and prevents dependency on any external circumstance, a specific person, a comfortable job, or a familiar place for your inner stability. The truly free mind recognizes that the only constant is change and accepts that all things must eventually pass. With that mental baggage gone, your mind should become a clear, unbiased mirror. The second act of the Dakodo is about forging the lens through which you see the world, ensuring that your perception is accurate and objective. Musashi guides us to think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. This is the ultimate antidote to self-absorption and ego. When you think lightly of yourself, you remain humble, adaptable, and open to being wrong. You can change your opinion instantly when presented with new evidence, which is a key trait of an effective strategist. Thinking deeply of the world, however, means building a robust, accurate model of reality free from the distortions of your own desires or prejudices. This psychological distance has been shown to dramatically improve creative problem-solving. It is about engaging with your chosen path, your way, with intense, humble focus. We must also be warned, do not, under any circumstances, depend on a partial feeling. This is a stark warning against acting on a hunch, a fleeting emotion, or most critically, incomplete information. Mastery requires a comprehensive, objective assessment of the current situation. In a life-or-death duel, acting on a partial feeling, a guess about your opponent's next move, could be fatal. In modern terms, it is the discipline of gathering sufficient data before making any consequential decision. Before you react impulsively, whether sending that angry email, making that impulsive purchase, or committing to a major change, you must implement a simple three-question check. Do I have all the available information? Am I reacting primarily from emotion? What is the larger, objective context? The path of the solitary master has no room for destructive emotions, which leads to the rule, never be jealous. Jealousy is a destructive miscalculation of energy. It is your focus flowing outward, fixating on someone else's possessions, their path, or their success. This focus is stolen directly from your own journey and your own growth. Jealousy implies a fundamental lack of faith in your own process and your own capacity to define and achieve success on your terms. In a similar vein, Musashi insists that resentment and complaint are appropriate neither for oneself nor others. This is a stark call for total personal accountability. Resentment is often described as a poison you prepare for someone else but drink yourself. Complaining is simply a verbal admission of powerlessness. Both resentment and complaint halt forward momentum and waste the mental energy that could be used for action or for acceptance. The disciplined mind redirects that energy immediately into productive action, or into the calm acceptance that the situation is what it is. Finally, in clearing the lens of perception, Musashi addresses the ultimate fear: do not fear death. For Musashi, who faced it constantly, the fear of death was the primary cause of weakness, hesitation, and poor decision-making. If you live your life constantly fearing the end, you are not truly living. This principle is not a license for recklessness, but a demand to be so present and so committed to your purpose that the fear of dying loses its power to influence your decisions. This psychological mastery is mirrored in modern practices used by elite military units, such as the Navy SEALs' box breathing technique, designed to calm the mind under extreme threat, just as Musashi would calm his mind before a duel. Once the mind is clear and the lens of perception is accurate, the third act focuses on mastering action itself, ensuring every choice is deliberate and serves the larger purpose. The second principle we examine is a cornerstone of discipline: do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Pleasure should be the natural and well-earned byproduct of meaningful action and achievement, not the primary goal itself. Chasing cheap, unearned dopamine, endless scrolling, junk food, addictive vice fulfills the body temporarily, but starves the spirit and weakens your resolve. It is essential to maintain a high tolerance for boredom and discomfort. A simple test is to consider a 48-hour reset from all non-essential instant pleasures to recalibrate your baseline and restore your appreciation for earned satisfaction. This discipline extends to our deepest emotions. Do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love. In the context of discipline and the way, this means not letting overwhelming passion, whether positive or negative, override your core commitment to your long-term path. Intense, unchecked emotion can lead to spectacular short-term gains, but often carries ruinous long-term costs. The master must maintain emotional equilibrium, ensuring that all relationships and feelings are integrated into a life of purpose, not allowed to derail it. A highly practical rule follows: in all things have no preference. This is perhaps one of the most misunderstood rules of the Dakota. It does not mean you shouldn't enjoy one thing over another in life. It means being situationally impartial and adaptable. Do not be biased toward one tool, one method, or one predetermined solution. The master must be like water, adapting perfectly to the container. Musashi famously won a duel using an oar when his sword was unavailable. If he had preferred the sword above all else, he would have missed the opportunity to win with the improvised tool. In your professional life, this means not clinging stubbornly to a single strategy when a better one emerges. This impartiality is applied to the mundane aspects of life as well. Musashi states, "Do not pursue the taste of good food." This is a specific, practical application of the rule against seeking pleasure for its own sake. It is a reminder not to let base sensory pleasures become a distraction from the discipline required for mastery. We eat to live and to fuel our work, not to live for the sensation of eating. The physical environment must also be mastered. Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. This is the ascetic core of the Ronin, the masterless samurai. Physical and mental clutter creates attachments, demands maintenance, and ultimately slows you down. It makes you dependent on your environment and your stuff. To be mobile, adaptable, and truly free, you must be willing to shed what is no longer useful or essential to your way. In the sphere of thought, Musashi demands, do not act following customary beliefs. This is a powerful call for critical thinking, not mindless contrarianism. Your actions must align with your own deeply considered conclusions and objective evidence, not merely the unexamined traditions of the crowd or the prevailing consensus. The crowd often follows a path of least resistance. The master follows the path of maximum effectiveness. Finally, regarding tools, we are told, do not collect weapons or practice with weapons beyond what is useful. Focus on the utility and deep mastery of the essential tools you already have. Avoid the common trap of constantly seeking the next new thing, the next piece of gear, the next software, the next complicated technique, believing it will magically make the difference. Mastery is achieved through deep skill with limited tools, not through superficial knowledge of many. It is resourcefulness over resources. Actions sharpened and purpose clarified. The final test is to walk alone, without a crowd to follow or a crutch to lean on. This is the fourth and final act, the commitment to self-reliance. Musashi tells us to be indifferent to where you live. Your commitment to your path, your mastery, and your principles cannot be dependent on your environment, your city, or your specific circumstances. True mastery is portable. It resides within you, not in your zip code. If your purpose collapses when you change locations, your purpose was tied to the place, not to your internal code. This extends to material security. Do not seek to possess either goods or fiefs for your old age. Musashi, a Ronin who lived without land or fixed income, warned against attachment to excessive material wealth as the sole source of security. The modern interpretation is clear. Secure your necessities, define your enough, but do not let the endless pursuit of excessive wealth become the meaningless goal of your life. Once basic security is met, pivot your focus back to mastery, contribution, and the pursuit of your way. Regarding external forces, Musashi advises respect Buddha and the gods without counting on their help. Acknowledge the spiritual, the philosophical, the forces of luck, and the things you cannot control, but rely entirely on your own preparation, skill, and effort. This is the pinnacle of self-reliance. You honor the forces of the universe, but you do not delegate your destiny to them. This leads to the ultimate commitment. You may abandon your own body, but you must preserve your honor. This is the non-negotiable commitment to your internal code. Your honor, your personal, deeply held standard of ethics and behavior, is more valuable than your physical comfort or even your life. Never compromise the core values that define who you are and what you stand for, even when facing extreme pressure or adversity. This culminates in the final all-encompassing rule, the summation of the entire Dakota: never stray from the way. Your way is the consistent set of ideals and principles you have chosen to live by. This final rule is the identity loop that prevents the slow drift into mediocrity, weakness, and distraction. Absolute loyalty to this personal code is the only guarantee of a life lived with purpose and integrity. Quirks, 21 rules. One swordless operating system for the modern mind. Accept reality, see clearly, act with discipline, and protect your honor. This was Miyamoto Musashi's final gift, the understanding that everything you need for improvement, strength, and self-reliance is already within you. The path is walked alone, but it leads to a life of unparalleled focus, purpose, and mastery. If these ancient principles resonate with your own journey towards self-mastery, take a moment to reflect on which of the 21 rules presents the greatest challenge for you right now. The act of identification is the first step toward correcting the course.